It is 11:08 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. It's time for Ask a Rabbi on the road. Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb on the road, almost there. I got about one more left turn and then turning into the parking lot. Not far, but it's a wonderfully beautiful, cloudy morning. And so I'm going to speak about that a moment because I used to live in Tucson. And in Tucson, we always look to the mountains. There's 4 mountain ranges that surround Tucson. Use the CRST, the Catalinas, the Rincones, the Tucson Mountains, and the Santa Ritas. I didn't get them in order, but that's okay. And from my house where I lived, I could actually see all of them. So pretty awesome. You kind of feel almost like you're in a caldera, but it's 4 mountain ranges. And one of those goes over 8,000 feet in the air. Actually, I think it's 12,000 by the top, but there's a city at 8,000. And, that's Mount Lemmon. Some people might know it from the fire that they had a number of years ago. It's really changed the way we do forestry. Learned that zero tolerance led to forest fires. So think about that as we think about California, and hopefully we're getting better at controlling some of those. But it's still a pretty horrendous event.
You know, it's amazing you talk about the forestry. I remember, oh my goodness, when I was a Capitol correspondent in San Diego, we used to talk to Jerry Brown about the forestry operations. And so you figure that was 1976. Well, come 1990, they changed all that. And they did a very poor job, and they just took the money and spent it elsewhere. I know Donald Trump said something that was, blasphemous in California about, the fires were their fault. And in a way, you think about it, it was sort of their fault. Yeah, it was really interesting. So I think... Whoa, there it is. Okay. You were right next. Next. Now we got you in studio.
There we go. And I am, and I'll be live on the internet here very shortly. Can do many things. Parallel processing here. Get some glasses on so I can see. Oh, and it says my iPad's not backed up. There we go, backed up.
Yeah, mine always does that.
Well, it's because it has to be plugged in and attached to an internet to back itself up.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
That's where it is. Log on to another account. That's not what we want. Okay.
So how are the highways and byways
They
out
are
there?
Beautiful. And
it's a gorgeous day outside.
It is a gorgeous day. So as I started to say, the mountains work as kind of the thing that that makes Florida so beautiful. And get me somewhat down here. It's a little breezy today, but that's okay too. And there we go. Slowly getting me put together. And So the clouds are Florida's mountains.
Yes, they are.
And they are beautiful, and they are ever changing. So it is an amazing and a wonderful thing. And
you think about, and for folks who've never been to Tucson, you've got to at least go there once in your lifetime. It's an amazing place.
It is. Arizona is an amazing state.
Oh, yeah.
Not just because of the Grand Canyon, although, I went back to Arizona for the graduation for my PhD.
Yes.
Actually, for both of them. But just this past summer, I went back for my PhD in psychology to pick up the little sheepskin and all that stuff, because it's nice to have those to hang on the wall. Mm-hmm. After all, you've put a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears, and
exactly.
a few shekels into that process.
There you go.
So it's worth it to have the piece of paper. But I stayed a couple of extra days because one of the things people don't do is go and look at the natural resources and the natural, beautiful things. Right? It's amazing how many people in Florida have never been to Disney. Not that that's necessarily the greatest thing in the world. For some people, it is. But I think that you should see the things that your state's famous for. You should see the Everglades. You should see, Sewell's Point and all different kinds of things that are throughout your state. You should do a couple of in-state vacations. And Bill and I, although we drove through parts of the Grand Canyon because we drove up to Salt Lake City a couple of times, so we saw some amazing things. Zion Park.
Oh.
You can't. If you've never been to Zion Park, you have no idea how God paints the world.
Yeah.
And so ironically, right? So we decided to stay. My friend went out with me, and she treated me to 2 nights in Sedona, and then from Sedona we went and did the Grand Canyon. We did the Williams.
Williams,
train.
Arizona.
Yeah,
Yep,
Williams,
yep.
Arizona train. That's an old train that actually used to connect that part of the world to the Grand Canyon because they kind of needed that, and there's a hotel in the Grand Canyon and all kinds of things. And, so she treated me to that train ride, and here I was thinking that it would travel along the rim and you'd really get to see the canyon, and no, it doesn't. It travels through some very nice and beautiful farmland, but 2 hours of Arizona farmland.
That's enough.
Yeah, it's enough. It's more than enough. And it doesn't show you the Grand Canyon. And I really got the sense of that when on the way back on the train. And ironically, she booked the air-conditioned car to the canyon and the non-air-conditioned, old-fashioned open-air car on the way back. I might have done it.
You were in a convertible.
Well, yeah, convertible train. Right, the old Pullman. And, and it's nice, and they pretend to do a bank robbery there to collect money for the kids and all that stuff. The money that they steal, which they want you to plant in obvious places on your body for the thief to grab, they give to charity. So that's a nice thing, and it's kind of fun for the kids. I was a little hot, bothered, and tired by the time we were getting back, so I didn't play. But, it was nice to see the elk. The elk were coming out because it was getting toward evening, and that was kind of fun. But 2 hours of riding through farmland and then 2 hours back gets a little tedious. It's 4 hours of train ride and like an hour in a bus looking at the Grand Canyon and a mediocre lunch. But, it's a fun thing to do. People should do it once.
It's interesting. We had some friends who actually went down to the floor.
Right.
Of the
That's
Grand
the
Canyon.
way to see the Grand Canyon.
Carol went down. I think it was the halfway mule trip.
Ooh.
Down.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. She and a college roommate. So, yeah, she said it was a lot of fun. Very sore the next few
next
days,
day,
but yeah.
on the bottom end, because if you don't know how to post, you get sore.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to post on ponies and donkeys. What can I say? Used to own horses back in California. Haven't owned them since, and I do miss them. They're kind of fun.
Really?
They're a lot of work, but
only
they're fun.
ponies I was ever around was Santa Anita. I'm sorry.
No, did not race the kids.
And Carol was a horse person. I mean, she when she was in Pakistan, when she was early teens, they would ride. Is it English style in competition?
Yeah.
I don't know what
English
that
saddle.
is, but
it's a type of saddle.
Yeah. But she loves horses.
Yeah. So mostly I rode mine bareback, which is just to put a blanket on them and off you go. Western has the big horn that people hold on to. It's not really intended for you to hold on to. It's really intended for you to be able to take the reins from the horse and just loop them around that. It's a place because for the most part, horses know where they're going. They're not stupid. And unless you really want them to turn right or left, you don't need to give them a whole lot of instruction. And that's why you can ride bareback. I mean, all I had to do was touch the horse on the side of his neck, and he would turn whichever direction I was.
Ooh.
He and I had gotten so good. And if I wanted him to speed
Wow.
up, I just pushed my legs in a little bit, not hard, but just a little bit. And I was a kid, so that was a Welsh pony, and I also had a much taller purebred horse. His dad was a horse too.
Ooh.
You didn't pay attention. His father was a horse too.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Some assorted.
Now I get it.
Some
Okay.
assorted gelding.
There you go. Okay.
And so I had these two. And he was very, very big. He was much taller. Mostly I rode the pony because he and I just got along better. He was actually a little bit too tall to be a pony. He was a large pony. He was like almost a hand bigger than he should have been.
I know at the racetracks, the workhorses are much larger than the thoroughbreds.
Yeah, they have to be. They have to work.
So, yeah. That's
Thoroughbreds are
interesting,
designed
yeah.
for running.
Right.
They're bred for running, and they're actually pretty fragile in a lot of ways. They can't do the kind of work that a workhorse does. You need strong bones for that. So,
Then there are the quarter horses.
Yeah.
Those are amazing.
My bigger horse looked something like a quarter horse.
Okay.
A little bit, but not totally. Like I said, I don't know what they were doing or not paying attention to, but he was a fun horse. His name was Pistol Pete.
Okay.
And the pony's name was Rebel.
Okay.
So yeah, and good old Western names. I didn't name them.
I was going to say
I did not
that's-
name them. We inherited them, and yeah, they were fun. I enjoyed them, but they were a lot of work. It was going to the stables every day and brushing and cleaning and giving
sure.
and giving things. Now we had a stable that took care of them, but we still had to do a lot every day. And
Another great place in
another
Arizona,
great place.
by the way,
Yeah.
is like up by Window Rock Navajo
Ah,
Reservation. Is another just breathtaking area of the
Yeah.
world. And of course, like you said, just keep heading north up to through Utah, and oh my.
Oh yeah,
goodness.
it's absolutely gorgeous. The dam, stop and see the dam and the museum that's there. All of that it's just God's beauty in landscape. But we didn't get to see that, right? Because we took that little train ride in the park and then headed home. And my friend who had arranged for all this because it sounded good to her, and she'd actually done the train ride before, but she's never been in the canyon, so she doesn't know what she missed. And on the way back to Sedona, she said, the Grand Canyon's kind of big and grand, but Sedona's beautiful. And I'm like, that's because you're up close to the rock in Sedona. If you were up close down below to the Grand Canyon, you would see it in its magnificence. It's one thing to look down, and it's scary, but it's incredible to look up and to go up some part of that. Just as it's amazing to go up Mount Lemmon.
And for folks who've never seen Arizona, go to ArizonaMagazine.com.
Ah, there you go.
Their pictures
And see some of the scenery.
are mind-boggling.
Yeah.
They really are. That'll give you a little tour of what you could see out there.
Yeah. And saguaro and all of the other amazing cactus that lives out in Arizona. So much for Arizona. Back to Florida with its mountains and its clouds. And it's a beautiful thing. I do have 2 saguaro on my back porch, by the way.
Do you really?
I do. They're about
They actually survive here?
Yeah, they do quite well as long as you don't, you can actually leave them outside, amazingly, as long as you put them in really well-draining soil.
Wow, I would think
So-
the humidity would just
No.
do those things in.
The big thing for them is not having their feet wet.
Yeah?
They don't like their feet wet. Mine are living in a pot because they're not that big.
Right.
And I've got a little tiny one that somebody brought me from Arizona, too.
That's cute.
That-
Okay,
it's about-
yeah.
Well, it's grown quite a bit. When they brought it to me, it was only about 2 or 3 inches tall, and it's more than doubled that. So they don't grow very fast, but they do grow if you don't overwater them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give them some water. So,
But not much.
yeah, not much.
Yeah.
So those are my babies, and I've got a couple of other. I've got a night blooming Cirrus, the queen. I've got 2 of those that I actually brought with me when I came out of Tucson. They haven't bloomed for me. They must not like that. I've got a Cirrus in the front yard that came from a field across from where I live They had cleaned it, and we actually rescued the cat. We asked them, could we have these pieces of cactus, please, or succulent, and grabbed them, and they're now living in my front yard.
Oh, cool.
And they do
That's
bloom.
neat.
In fact, that's I'll show you real quickly. I can't show a lot of people this, but if you look at my phone, you can see behind there is
Oh, wow.
the flower.
That's a gorgeous
Yeah,
yellow, bright,
It's
bright,
well, it's
bright.
not that bright. The phone is doing its thing on it, but
Oh, okay.
it's actually white, and the light from the
Oh, from the sun.
it makes it yellow.
Yeah.
And that was an early morning shot.
Uh-huh.
So
wow.
right before they closed up, it was starting to move in. I can see it because they only come out the one night.
Yeah. When you go out west of Tucson, and especially when the cactuses are cacti are blooming.
Yeah, that's the old Arizona in you, cactuses.
When they're blooming, oh my, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's gorgeous. When the desert blooms, when it rains in the desert, it is totally different from rain here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
The rain, Bill was in love with the rain for a long time when we moved back east because he actually missed it in Tucson. I didn't, but that would be me. And he would stand out in it here, and now he doesn't so much. It's still nice. What isn't so nice is the exceedingly high amount of mold that we get here, but that's just a matter of being mindful of what happens.
Right.
You can adapt to just about anything.
Sure.
And so getting back to it, we need to appreciate the beauty of the world around us, no matter where we are. One of these days I'm going to put together some of the thoughts that I have called Lessons from a Cactus, which are things associated with that transplant cactus in my front yard, because I barely stuck it in a pot. I mean, it had been chewed up by the backhoe and everything else that they had done, and I just grabbed some chunks of it and put it in this pot, and it put out flowers almost immediately. So
it was happy.
Bloom where you can.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot to be said from learning from nature. And I think here's the segue. I think that's what the ancients really understood in a way that we with our iPads and our cell phones sometimes miss.
Sometimes?
Sometimes. Most of the time.
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really have become screen kids, even those of us who don't think of ourselves that way. I did an experiment with myself yesterday. I was watching a little bit of a video, and I said, okay, I want to see how much of the video I can absorb and retain while I'm texting and doing things on my phone. And I'm going to have to rewatch that video. Okay, that's an admission. And I'm a really good parallel processor. But there was so much in that video that I missed.
Wow.
Yeah. So I invite people to do that. Something that you really want to see, and do something else on your phone at the same time, and then you'll start to realize what you're doing to your life if you're overusing your phone. I mostly did it because a bunch of, students will always say, oh, I can do it. No, you can't. Mm-hmm. You can't absorb the material in class. You're going to miss key pieces. You're going to not be paying attention. You tune out the rest and don't realize it. And that's why it's dangerous to text and drive.
You bet.
Because you zone out on the road and what's happening around you, and then the next thing you know, you're hitting a tree, or somebody,
or worse,
right? You're lucky if it's just a swerve and you catch it, but it really is a super important thing. Like I said, I'm a pretty good parallel processor, and something I wanted to see I couldn't catch enough of.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's quite an admission there.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because I am one who will periodically check the phone from time to time. And, I almost have to as a rabbi because you never know when that call's going to come in.
Sure.
And obviously there are times when I'm not paying attention to it. I jokingly use it.
But you are on call.
I'm on call. And that's most of the time. I do not do much with that, obviously, when there are services. If you watch the streaming of the service, you might see the phone, but it's actually my paperweight to hold the prayer book open.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very often it is turned face down so that it holds the pages. It's the right size and the right weight. And rather than hunt around for something that's the same size and shape as a cell phone, I use the cell phone for it. So that's my paperweight, and it's there. And, now, maybe I'm getting older, but I don't think so. I don't think that's the problem. I think, right, we've gotten so much stimulus in our world that we have forgotten to connect with nature.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
There's no air conditioning at the Grand Canyon? Oh.
It depends on the bus.
And that's where, especially when you see some of the amazing afternoon lightning storms and you're up in the East Rim looking west, and oh my goodness.
And you see all that.
It's the ultimate light show.
Yeah, wherever you are, it can be gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's another thing, right, in Tucson. We didn't have the air conditioner on except for, a little bit of June, maybe July and August. And then it was off again. And doors were open. I miss that. I miss having the doors and windows open. You have the doors and windows open in Florida, and you might as well put, mosquitoes wanted here sign in your window.
Yes.
Because they will come. But that's not something that Arizona is plagued with, because it's so dry.
Sure.
Mosquitoes need swamplands. No, it's not like there aren't wetlands. There's a few wetlands. The cranes come in, the sand cranes come in, and they migrate through, and that's a gorgeous sight to see when they come in. When they come down in a swoop and they go up in a swoop. So that's worth watching too. I've been out and seen that. So yeah, a lot of birding goes on in Arizona. A lot of birding goes on here in Florida.
Oh, you bet. Yeah.
Speaking of which, we've got a yellow cardinal living in our neighborhood.
I've wondered, I've seen that, and of course I think Channel 5 did a story on it, and I'm thinking, wow, I've never seen anything like that.
You do a double take on that because he's bright yellow. You look out, and you're used to, every once in a while I'm used to seeing like a red.
Oh yeah, we
splash.
have the red ones.
Yeah, the red ones pop around and they bop on the grass, and my poor dog runs out to them and then gives me this look like, why did it fly away? Maybe because it didn't really want to play with you.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And he's always surprised at how they can take flight and he can't. But
he tries.
Yeah, and the yellow one sticks out because I've got a red Ponciana in my backyard. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he really sticks out when he's in that tree, and he's been in there once or twice that I've seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So.
Yeah.
And he's been in other places in the neighborhood. People, you can always tell when he shows up because the internet buzzes, the neighborhood thing starts. Have you seen? He's been around.
Sure. Yeah.
So those are just little things of nature. It can be any amazing set of things. It doesn't have to be any one thing to be amazing. It can be a rainbow. It can be clouds. Take a moment every day. That's my invitation to people. Take a moment every day and connect with nature. Here's a clue. They got it in the ancient days. It's a really subtle clue in Scripture. But notice how people always want to get outside the city to talk to God.
That's intriguing.
Yeah. Moses says we have to go out into the wilderness. Daniel says it. I have to go outside the city. I have to go down to the river. Deborah goes up on the mountain. There's always getting away from the city and the technology, even though it was different in those days.
Even then, it was light pollution.
Right. Even then, and noise and stimulation.
And noise pollution, sure.
And stimulation pollution.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to connect to you and to nature, you need a few minutes. Now, you don't have to go outside the city. Just go to a park and settle down or somewhere.
When did we lose that in the U.S.? Was it the automobile?
Well, certainly the automobile didn't help. The automobile gets noisy. We've got airplanes. They were noisy. But in the ancient days, it was horses and the clatter of wagons and shop noises, and, right? Even the bustle of people eating. So you want to go, when Jesus talks to people, he does it on a mountain. Right? Away from the city.
Moses on a mountain.
Yeah, Moses on a mountain. So it's important it's important to get a little bit away, and there you can connect to the reality of life and quiet yourself down and stop the little chatterbox in your head. You'll never get the chatterbox to totally shush, because it doesn't.
Just want to know how they would handle Key West.
What, the chatterbox? but even Key West, right? You can, if you go away from the tourist area and go to the less traveled parts, you can sit there. You can sit at parts of the dock and not have mobs around you. You got to pick your time of day. But, you can find, if you're of a mind to find a place to connect, you can find it. I'm convinced of that. There was a when we were in Key West, that was, about almost 5 years ago now. And, we found lots of places where my husband and I were pretty much alone. There's a botanical garden there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can walk through it. And, of course, within a garden, there's always places where there aren't tons of people in the moment, particularly if you go at a time that isn't the high tourist or the high travel times. And, what we did is we got that ticket that takes you on the trolley that goes all around.
Sure.
And we got off at the Arboretum and went into it. There's also the amazing butterfly, but that you're not alone. It's you and 5 million tourists and some butterflies trying to fly around. So, yeah. But you can pick and choose. So that's my invitation to people. Find something to help you connect. And I see my friend Wendy coming in on Facebook here. So I will tell Wendy that the cactus from her front yard is doing well, too. I don't know what it is. She tries to tell me it's a baby swallow. It's not a baby swallow, but it might be an organ pipe or something else. It's about maybe 5, 6, 7 inches tall now.
Oh, okay.
And it's doing well in its little pot. It came to me in a little paper towel, so it.
That's funny.
It is now doing quite well. So
that's cool.
I have to send her an upgraded picture. I haven't done that lately. Yeah. Time marches on. Time marches on. We've passed the holidays. Thank you. This is after holiday rabbi ramble. It's about what it's
exhausted
about.
Rabbi.
It's about what I'm good for a few days afterward. But it's as good a time as any to speak to the expo that's coming up on November 17th. That's not that far away anymore. Less than a month away. And that'll be at the Community Center on Oroso, just north of Port St. Lucie Boulevard, just the north side of Lakeside Shopping Center is the Community Center. It's got lots of parking. There's parking in the shopping center. There's parking across the street at the city campus. So lots of parking, and there'll be all kinds of vendors. We're going to have direct sellers that'll be there selling their things. There'll be artwork. We've got some really amazing things coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. We've got some chiropractors that are going to be there, some insurance folks that you can talk to, lots of questions that you might get answered, and lots of things to see. So we call it more than a home show, more than a health fair, more than a craft show, more than an art show. It's all those things wrapped up into one, and that's why it's called an expo. It's free to the public. The doors are open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So please do come and see. We still have a few tables left if you'd like to be one of our vendors. And we'll have a number of nonprofits there as well. So lots of different things going on. I think it'll be a fun afternoon for folks. And that's one of the things that we want to bring different things to the people of the Treasure Coast. It's, we're not an isolated community that takes from the community. We're a community that gives and interacts with the larger community. And that's just a bit of who and what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that really matters. And you can obviously come by and we'll have a little table there. You can come and talk and check us out as well. And hopefully you'll have a good time if you come and a great time if you're a vendor. Hope that'll work for you too, get you lots of exposure. It's a nice place, and it doesn't rain inside the community center.
That's hopefully.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
that's always one of the dangers of an outdoor show in Florida.
So, okay, how can we take a look at the website?
You can go to www.eitzchaym.org and click on events, and you will find the registration forms for the Expo and the Art and Craft Festival in February. We're already taking reservations. We've already got tables reserved for it.
Whoa!
In
Okay.
February. That'll be at the same location. That one will be an art show and a separate craft show and the Direct Seller Fest. So that'll be 3 shows in one happening at that same location. The Expo is blended, so you're going to see everybody together. The one in February, they're separated into their areas.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 different ways of offering similar kinds of things, if you will. And I think those are good times for all.
Oh, yeah, and great times for those of you newcomers to the Treasure Coast, and
Come
you're all
yeah.
welcome.
Absolutely, and it's free to the public. And the tables are not that expensive. We've been blessed with a donor, a sponsor who's matching. So tables are half cost for vendors. So it's a really good time to come.
That's great.
That's a great deal. You're not going to find that kind of a deal to get tables. So somebody really believes in what we're doing, and they're willing to help vendors. I think that's huge.
Mm-hmm. You
Because
bet.
we got to pay for the space.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So somebody helping with that makes it so much easier. It's not intended to make the congregation rich. It's intended to give back to the community.
Sure.
So that's our outreach part, and we hope that you'll join us either as a vendor or as a participant coming through, one of the public coming to look. And there'll be youth groups there, a couple of different, like the Boys and Girls Club, and I believe we have Order of the Rainbows and all kinds of different activities that are kid-oriented.
Cool.
So lots of things to see.
That sounds great. Yeah, and that's 17th.
The 17th
What
of
are the
November
hours again?
from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay.
So you can come anytime in there. The vendors will be setting up before 10 o'clock, obviously, and getting their things out for you to see. But it should be a great time.
That
It's
sounds good.
easy to come to the door there and unload your stuff and then go park. And there's a couple of different ways you can come into the building and do that. So it's really designed to be good for everybody.
And again, for the newcomers, it is on Aroso, just north of Port St. Lucie Boulevard, right across from City Hall.
Not
So
far from the Turnpike if you're coming in by
That's
Turnpike.
right. Yeah, and then the Crosstown Parkway, which no matter where you are, you
Yeah.
can get there in a matter of minutes. So yeah, it's great.
That is a nice thing that's opened up.
Yeah. I've been using it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Although I confess, I wish that one of these years they'd break through at Becker, but
they will.
eventually, yeah.
No, that's going to happen.
They're going to have to, I think, deal with the yacht club.
Yes, well, yeah.
But it might not be exactly straight line, but yeah, that's a place that needs to break away or break through because it is one of the joys of having an outer barrier reef is that you have to get to it.
Right. Exactly.
And you have to get to Highway 1 to get to it. So
yeah. So how are your kids? What kind of students have you got
my
this year
students?
at
Oh,
IRSC?
I've got great students. I'm very, very lucky with students. I really am. They're nicely responsive. Yeah, this semester I'm teaching Intro to Humanities, which is applied philosophy, showing how philosophy works in lawyer ethics, in medical ethics, in prison corrections, in government. Just about any subject you can imagine, business, computers, right?
Ethics in government? Oh, I'm sorry.
Down boy. But it talks about philosophies of government. Why do people have governments? It's an interesting question. We're talking with a scriptural base of things, right? Torah says don't have a king. Right? Israel is told not to have a king, but the people want one. Why do they want a king? Because obviously things like presidents hadn't yet been developed. Get my mouth to work here. So they want a king. They want a king to rally an army. And, scriptures warn.
But the Torah is against that.
The Torah is against it. The Torah says if you're not careful, the king will amass buildings and horses and wives. And when we look at Solomon, and we can see the fruition of that warning, right? He had an inordinate number of wives and concubines, 600 wives and 300 concubines or something like that.
Oh, sorry, one's enough.
Well, you think about it, right? There's a requirement to give a wife food and clothing. Well, okay, if you're rich, you might be able to do that, and housing. But they're also entitled to conjugal rights. They're not to be forgotten and left in a tent unattended. Whether you're happy in the moment or not, conjugal rights is something that goes with a marriage. And you just can't do that for 900 women. I'm just sorry,
Well, you'd be busy.
Yes, you wouldn't get any government done.
That's oh, man.
Yeah, so, so it's clearly somebody's being not appropriately managed or handled or treated. And that's the warning that, if you put somebody in that position, the temptation to take things becomes so great. Because you're not entitled to all those horses. You're not entitled. Now, some of those wives were obviously political treaties in the form of a person. If I have your daughter, you won't wage war on me. And I'm sure that was some of it.
So how did, some religions count on bigamy of some sort down the line?
Torah also says no more than 4 wives, because that's as much, and no more than you can financially handle.
4 wives?
Yeah.
The Torah says 4 wives?
Any smart person knows that 4 is more than you can really handle.
Yeah, I would think so.
Again, part of that also comes from the idea of a society where men are going out to battle, and so a lot of them are not returning. Right. We have, wars are devastating.
Okay, so what happens to those wives back in those days?
Well, that's the idea, is that then somebody is taking care of multiple wives to not have as many widows running.
Wow.
And women live longer,
right?
Usually.
Still do.
Still do. And, that's part of that's the extra protection that's there during the childbearing years. Your body is actually designed to keep you healthier so that the baby has a better chance of surviving, whereas men don't share in that in that same way. They don't carry the kid. They might lug the kid, but they don't carry the kid. And that's a very, very stressful time on a female body. And so her body's got to be healthier. And so the body is more resistant to some things, and it handles some things better. And that falls away at the end of when you start to go into menopause. But that gives women a little bit longer of having been healthier. And, So it kind of works out, but not really. And there's an acknowledgement, even in Torah, that having more than one, not so good. There's usually one that you love and one that you don't love. And it actually defines hate as if you've got 2 wives, you love one and you hate one.
Okay. Really?
Yeah. So hate, it gives us a little bit of an idea. Hatred is not necessarily anger and animosity towards someone. It's making someone second place.
Oh, well, yeah, psychological damage.
Psychological damage, yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. And so it talks to that. It says, that you may not mistreat the wife that you hate. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't take away rights. You can't do this. You can't do that, even if you want to. So, and then if you multiply that toward any greater number, then you can see that multiple marriages are not going to work, or multiple, any significant number of wives. And we look at the different times that humanity has experimented with that process. Right? You look at, thinking of Arizona, the fundamentalist.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice here. Groups
No,
that
you don't have to. They're cults.
Yeah, the cults with the many wives, and what are they? They have to mistreat boys and kick them out in order to keep the numbers working, because we don't have warfare to take the boys away. So yeah, you can see that there's so many ills associated with that. Has there always been a drive in some men to want multiple partners? Yeah, there's probably a drive in some women to have multiple partners. Right.
But I would say far less the latter.
Probably because they're, for a variety of reasons. We can devote a whole show to that. I'm not going to start that topic at 10 minutes to the end of the program. I won't get through the program. But this would be a good time, a segue for anybody to call and ask a question at 772-340-1590, WPSL 1590, digital 1590. There you go. So you can listen to us on Alexa Home or Google Home or Alexa.
Yeah, right on your telephone.
Or here on Facebook or anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, your tablet.
Yeah,
you name
lots of different ways to listen to it.
Yeah, and now it's Lexus and I think Infiniti, the new 2020s, have Alexa standard in the dashboard.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
All you have to do is say, hey, Alexa, play WPSL. Bang, we're there.
So I'm going to quickly say that, my little trip out to Arizona, we rented a Camry. I drive a Camry, and we rented a modern Camry. I was amazed at the things on the dashboard.
Oh, I bet.
And how it interfaced with my phone. The heck with driving. Let me get the interface for my phone. Because that really did. It helped keep things when phone calls came through. There was no fumbling. It was just answer and off you went. So that is nice. And trying to, deal with that. So back to the question that you had, my students. See, I did not forget. We wandered off. So applied philosophy is the one course. So I've also got one called critical thinking and creative thinking. And that's dealing with things like logic and fallacies. Figurative speech is what our class was yesterday. When we use my father is a mystery. She came through the house like a whirlwind.
Oh, sure, yeah.
All right, those are not logical statements. They're not testable statements. They're designed to create an image in your mind, but they really don't belong in scholarly work, and they don't belong in persuasive speech. They're used in those contexts, but that's a fallacy of appealing to emotion, appealing to the bandwagon, or just false meaning. Contradiction because of the idiom of the language. So when we're talking to build an argument for or against something, you need to be mindful of not using those things and not using red herrings. I challenged the class to watch political announcements and see how often, after I went off and talked about everything under the sun, under your question, but I'm coming back, how often politicians don't answer the question.
Oh, sure.
Right? If they don't want to answer the question, they're going to use a bunch of fallacies to get you somewhere else so they can talk about what they want to talk about and bring their campaign issue or whatever they want to make their central issue and bring that forward.
How long athletes don't answer questions?
A lot of people don't answer questions. Well,
yeah.
A lot of people don't. And it's usually...
Change the subject right away.
It's usually just easier just answer it and keep going. Yeah, so that's then the third class is Introduction to Philosophy, a very basic look at philosophy, but done topically, not by philosopher. So we'll look at knowledge and truth. We'll look at relativism. We'll look at morality. We'll look at religion. We'll look at metaphysics. All the different subjects and then see what the philosophers, since the pre-Socratics up through modern philosophers, have to say about it. Because philosophy is an ongoing discipline. People might think it's only in college. It's not. There's a ton of it going on, applied all through the world, and teaching uses a lot of it. Psychology uses philosophy. That's why we call the doctorate a doctorate of philosophy in a subject. So we talk about that. We talk about different philosophers, from Thales through Socrates through Bertrand Russell, you name it, James, Locke. These are, a lot of philosophers were also scientists. Some were mathematicians. Some are psychologists. They're multiple disciplined people. And so we look at different things. We were talking about Man in Search of Meaning. Viktor Frankl was one of the subjects in one of my classes, right? Burn with the games people play. Lots of different ways to look at it. And I don't know that we have found the answer. I know we haven't. We haven't found the answer to anything yet, which I think speaks to it. We're not intended to find the answer. We're intended to seek the answer.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll switch and do the Jewish thing. The Jewish thing says, holiness is not in finding God. Holiness is in seeking God.
But you have said that your religion is a seeking religion.
Correct. And so that is part of what makes you holy. So let's take that a moment, because God says, I am holy. Right? I am kadosh, I am holy. Be holy, for I am holy. So it's an invitation to imitate God. What are we imitating? What is God seeking? If our practice is to seek God, what is God seeking? Right? So there was a famous book called God in Search of Man. Right? So we have, we have this idea of God. It's not this God, but this idea of God, where God is actively engaged, breathing and creating and recreating every day. So not only is God not done with us, because we're still here and breathing, and God's not done with God's self. So somehow humans and creation help fulfill God. And so, there is this partnership, this hand-in-hand working together to seek, to improve, to evolve. That is being godly. So sitting back, not caring, not doing is not being godly. So you need to take some time and pause and connect. But it needs to be with the idea of, what does it mean to fulfill? What does it mean to seek? What does it mean to be an active participant in your life? And in the life or the community. Not the life of others, but the community. Right? That entity that's all of us coming together in a package and moving the world forward. And that's really what we can and in fact must do. We're all part of this package. We're all living. We're all still working at it. Perfection, we're perfectly human. But we are not without flaws and not without stuff to work on. Because if we don't have stuff to work on anymore, then we've gone to seed and we're done. Right? Yeah. I like to put words in my dog's mouth. Personify. It's one of the fallacies. But when I do one of the things that I do, I've got a little cocky little dog, and I run around and say for him, I used to be conceited, but now I'm perfect.
Yes. There was a disc jockey in Los Angeles who had a sign on his wall, when you're as great as I am, you can't be humble.
Yeah. Hard to be humble when you're...
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well...
It was a piece of work.
Right, so one of the challenges that we have, is false humility. False humility. I'll get the words out yet. Right? That's not truthful either. The things that where you have a gift, it's not, the key is to not be boastful about it, but don't deny it either. Right? Acknowledge it. Acknowledge a gift. We all have gifts to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we offer and what we can work on. You can work on your strengths and make them better. Just because it's your strength doesn't mean you've got it all. Right? The best surgeons continue to practice and study and learn. The best scientists continue to study and learn. Nobody's done. You're never done until you're done breathing. So as long as there is breath within us, we have work to do. We have work to do to make life better for ourselves and others, and not at the expense of others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the hard part. None of us is entitled to more than anybody else. We all get 24 hours a day. We all have opportunities to improve our lot in life. And we are challenged to do that without harming anyone else in the process. And I think when we really get that in a gut level, then we as a society can move forward. And, it's that respect and the dignity afforded others. The central part of Torah says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And it's one of the quotes that Jesus used in his ministry, coming right out of the book of Leviticus of all places. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What a great way to move forward into the world. This has been Ask a Rabbi on WPSL Digital 1590.
You have a good week.
You too. Take
and
care.
remember November 17th.
November 17th, the expo, and come see us at the congregation Friday nights at 7:30 or Shabbat mornings at 10:30.
See you next week. You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WPSL.com, webcaster to the world, on Alexa and Google Home.